Dax slumped into his seat, exhausted. The bus was full of weary travelers, all hoping for a better life in the next town over. The journey would take 2 days, and the thought of spending that much time in this cramped space made Dax feel claustrophobic. As the bus pulled away from the station, Dax looked out of the window and saw the familiar sight of the city disappearing behind him. He had grown up in the suburbs, but after the collapse of globalization, he had been forced to move to the countryside with his family. Life in the rural areas was tough. They had to grow their own food and rely on the land for survival. But at least they were self-sufficient, unlike the city dwellers who relied on imports and exports for their daily needs. Dax closed his eyes and tried to rest, but the bumpy ride made it impossible. He thought about his wife and children back home and wondered how they were doing. He missed them terribly, but he had to leave to find work. The farm they had inherited from his grandfather wasn't enough to sustain them anymore. After a few hours of uncomfortable silence, the bus driver announced that they would be stopping for the night at a small town on the outskirts of the forest. Dax got off the bus and looked around. The town was run down and deserted, but there was a small store that sold basic supplies. He bought some food and water and went to find a place to sleep. He found a small shelter in the woods and made a fire. As he sat there eating his meager meal, he thought about his life before the collapse. He had been a successful businessman, but now he was just another refugee trying to survive. The next day, the bus continued its journey. They passed through the forest and saw signs of life in the form of small villages and farms. Dax was amazed by how people had adapted to the new way of life. They had learned to live off the land and work together to rebuild their communities. As they approached the next town, Dax noticed something strange. The bus was slowing down, and the driver looked worried. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and the bus came to a stop. Dax got out and saw that one of the tires had blown out. The driver told everyone to get off the bus and find shelter. He said he would try to fix the tire and catch up with them later. Dax was hesitant to leave the safety of the group, but he knew he had no choice. He walked through the deserted streets, looking for a place to rest. As he turned a corner, he saw a group of people gathered around a small fire. They looked friendly, so he approached them. They welcomed him and offered him some food. Dax was grateful and sat down to eat with them. As they talked, he learned that they were part of a community that had been living in the area for years. They had managed to survive by working together and sharing resources. Dax was inspired by their resilience and asked if he could join them. They welcomed him with open arms, and he spent the next few months learning their ways and contributing to their community. As the years passed, Dax watched as the world slowly started to recover from the collapse. The internet was restored, but in a different form. It was no longer a tool for global communication, but a way for communities to connect and share knowledge. Dax was grateful for the new life he had found. He had learned to live off the land and work with others to rebuild society. He had found a sense of purpose and belonging that he had never felt before. As he looked out at the fields, he realized that this was the life. Dax had found something more valuable than money or material possessions, a sense of belonging and purpose. He watched the children playing in the fields and felt a sense of hope for the future. He appreciated the beauty of nature and was content to live in the present. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. He was grateful for the lessons he had learned and the people who had helped him. He closed his eyes, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. This was where he belonged, and he was grateful to be a part of it.